Welcome back. It's been a while since I put a video out, but I thought I would go through and discuss zone versus zone. So if you are a seasoned player playing in some of the older zones, or you're a new player trying out the game, this video is for you. They have changed how the new zones play zone versus the older zones. So I'm going to go through it and describe the points, how you can, no matter what your power is, get your points so that you can get some rewards. And when things change from the newer zone changing over to what they call melee, for instance, you will know what to do at that point as well. So let's start going through this. First off, they give a description. This is what happens in the older zones. You have your melee multi-zone, which is 4 zones not teamed together but separate individual zone points. So this is a general description of what you can do in the zones and how it is played. From getting what they call a war warrant. When you transfer to a different zone, you're allowed to be there for a few hours. When the war warrant runs out, it ejects you back to your own zone. It doesn't matter where your points are, or where your troops are. It doesn't matter any of that stuff. It's just going to send you straight back to your zone. The multi-zone shows the 3 other zones in the red, so you know which bases are technically the enemy. Your bases from your zone remain the same look. So as we're going through this, if we look at how you can individually score, this is important because it doesn't matter if you are playing new versus old. The points stay the same for the individual. So if you're destroying anything from a 1 to a 5, so what we call a T 1 through 5, some reason here they have it as an S5, but in the game we always speak of T for troop level 1 through 5. These are the points you'll get for each troop kill. If you destroy, you're recycled. If you only damage anywhere from a 2 to a 5 star, the point structure obviously changes, damaging them, sending them to the garage versus an actual kill. So that stays the same. And then if you notice on the next slide here, here's your rewards. Now the points required for the rewards will change as your base strength changes, how many points you get. It does alter this, it keeps up with you. So what a smaller base is required to get, bronze, silver, or gold, the gold chests, it's going to change. But it also lets you have a ranking. Overall, all the zones put together, it shows you a ranking for that. Now, you have to get at least 5,000 points to reap any of these rewards. So it doesn't matter what it states. If smaller base, it's a small number to get the rewards. You have to at least have 5,000 points. Now, as we're going through the next slide here, this is showing you if you're playing in the older zones or you're playing a melee. So if you're a new zone that has taken on the melee, you have then graduated to the next level of zone versus zone. So this right here is your point structure. So if you're destroying those units, it not only helps you for your individual ranking and rewards, but then your zone ranking and rewards. So the same is for the troops for individual as in the zone. But then we get to the next section, which is occupy enemy tile in every zone, occupy enemy territory in enemy zone. So this is points. So if you're occupying tiles, blank and or already occupied, you can gain points for your zone for an overall point structure. If you then deplete a level 5 or 6 resource point on an enemy server, not your server, on an enemy server, this is going to gain you anywhere from 1,000 or 100,000 points to 500,000 points. All right, so this is actually a very good way for somebody that is not as strong. Gives you an opportunity to gain points for yourself individually, as for the I'm sorry, not individually, but for the zone, for your overall points. So it is a good way to do that. Now, if you're going to occupy the enemy zone's government for every 5 minutes, it's 1,000,000 points. Doesn't matter who does it, just anybody grabbing an enemy zone government, it's 1,000,000 points per minute, or 5 minutes. 5 minutes. So occupying an enemy city for 5 minutes is worth 50,000, and occupying an enemy town for 5 minutes is worth 20,000. The difference is the larger of the cities or towns, if you're looking on the map, those are your cities, the large ones. There's 4 of them. And then the rest of them are the smaller ones. Those are considered your towns. So destroying recycled units, only worth 8 points, but of the T3 fashion only ones you can make anyway. But that's your point structure. So this is unique because this is how zone versus zone was originally, point structure was built. Then they had something called TVT, which I haven't seen for a while, and then this melee, so 4 zones going at it themselves. So moving on, we go to, so I use an example of zones 678 and 683 because they're one of the newer ones, and this here is how the new zone versus zones, only 2 zones going at each other. When you're playing in a new area, if you're an old zoner coming to a new area, or you're a new player trying out the game, this is how you're going to enjoy your first, I think it's about 2 months worth, maybe a little bit more depending on how quickly they're putting out the zones. About 2 months or so worth of zone versus zone, so you and another zone only. So the difference of this is they don't score it the same way. The point structure is the same, but how they actually go through this is not the same. So here, let's go through it little by little. So the first one here is you gain points per category. So if you're looking at this, your zone first place in arms race. Arms race is important in the new zones. In the older zones, it's not. Arms race allows you to get points for the gift balloons that pop up after you win arms race, and that's the only thing it counts towards. You win that, you get those balloons, you get the extra rewards, but it doesn't give you extra points towards zone versus zone. Whereas the newer zones, it does. It is a category that gives you 3 points. Then if you were to win first place in domination, it's 3. First place in zone versus zone only is 2. First place in plunder is 2. And then if you win total war, it's only worth 1 point. So let's go through what those are. So first one here is total war. During zone versus zone battles, that's you capturing the different cities and towns and things like that. So point structure is city for every 5 minutes is worth 25,000. Occupying a town for 5 minutes is worth 8,000. Then we move on. Now here's the key to any of these owning something for 5 minutes kind of a thing. If you don't allow any of your cities to be taken, and you take an enemy's city or town for 5 minutes, you either get the 25,000 or the 8,000, and that's all you need. You can win the category by holding something for 5 minutes if you don't allow them to take any of yours. So you can win the category with 1 point or all the points. It doesn't matter. It's still considered a win in the category. Okay? So moving on to the next, if we're looking at the plunder. The plunder is in regards to gathering the level 5 and 6 resource tiles. Okay, if you're taking these items, then you are gaining a level 5 at 20 and a level 6 at 100 points. So what that is allowing is for you to gain those points. And again, if they do none and you do one, you win the category. You don't have to win with all the points. You just have to have more than the enemy. So you always just have to pay attention and look back at this. If we're moving on to the next category, this one is for the enemy government. So again, taking the enemy's government for 5 minutes gains you 100,000 points. If you hold your monument, your government, and you take their government for 5 minutes and you get 100,000 or all the points, it does not matter. You just need to have more points than them and you win the category. Alright? And the same goes for some of the other categories. So domination was the government for 3, arms race for 3, and then plunder for 2, zone versus zone for 2. So if you add it up, so if you were to lose arms race but then you won domination, you're kind of at a tie there. And then it's just a matter of somebody's got to win either zone versus zone or plunder, and then they win because they'll have 4 extra points versus somebody who just won total war and one of the top 2 who doesn't have the same. So overall, you have to look at your points in each category and make sure you're winning the category. I would do this constantly in some of the newer zones where we would lose arms race, but we'd win domination and make sure to win zone versus zone and plunder and not worry about total war. And we would win because overall we had more points category. The other zone would cause more damage and destroy more troops and win by a landslide, but it didn't matter. They weren't winning all the other categories that we were. So just remember that. There's several tricks that you can do for this. And again, the size of the base does not necessarily matter, but if you're doing the boss every day, for instance, and collecting those boxes for the commander points and save them for zone versus zone, you can be shielded and grab cities constantly. As long as the wall is down, you just need to keep the city occupied for the wall to come back up. If you're working on the government, for instance, hold your monument, take theirs. 5 minutes, that's all you have to do. There's so many different ways, and it doesn't matter the size of your base. It does not matter how many troops you have, what troops you have. Every person can play a role in this. If you're taking resources, use your T1 troops and just sit by a resource tile and just do 1 or 2. If it's more than the other side is doing, it doesn't matter. And it doesn't matter if you guys are in civil war or not. It's still the zone itself is fighting to win. So every guild, every player, it doesn't matter, has a part to play and has the ability to help win or lose this zone versus zone. So remember, a little recap here. Winning in a new zone is based on winning the category. Winning in the older zones is based on overall points. So that's your cities, your resource tiles, all this is factored into the overall points. Arms race is not a factor in the old zones. New zones, arms race it's part of the categories. So go out there, take a chance, have some fun, figure it out. New zones is the time to practice, to try, to learn, because if you make a mistake in a category, you still could win. You can still pull it out. But in the older zones, when you make a mistake, it goes towards the overall points. So it's a little harder sometimes to get extra points back to then try to win in a different category or something like that you could do in the newer zones. So give it a try, go out there, learn it, figure it out, ask questions below, whatever you need to do. There's a lot to learn, so I'm here to help. There are many people that I've found throughout the game that are willing to help as well. Go out there and have some fun with this.